Crepe. A crepe is a silk, wool, or synthetic fiber fabric with a distinctively crisp, crimped appearance. The term crepe typically refers to a form of the fabric associated specifically with mourning, also historically called crespe or crisp. Types aerophane, crimped silk gauze with a crepe texture. A historic 19th-century lightweight crepe, introduced in 1820, and, as crepe aerophane in 1861. Albert Crepe. A superior quality black silk mourning crepe used since 1862. Plain weave crepe. An English-made silk and cotton blend crepe. Alsacienne, a furnishing fabric with alternating plain weave and crepe stripes. Alpaca crepe, rayon and acetate blend crepe with a woolen texture, not necessarily made of alpaca yarn. Altessa, a British plain weave silk fabric with crepe filling. Arabian, a British-made plain weave cloth with figured crepe designs. Piece-dyed silk crepe embroidered with dots. Amur, see Georgian crepe. Balanced crepe, crepe woven with alternating S and Z twist yarns in both directions. Balmoral Crepe, a 1895 English crepe. Balzerine, a 1889 narrow striped silk grenadine overlaid with wider crepe stripes. An earlier 1830s cotton worsted fabric, spelled balzerine, is probably not crepe. Bark crepe, a broad term describing rough crepes with a bark texture. Boute satin, warp-woven satin with a plain crepe reverse. Borada crepe, a cheaper, economical version of mourning crepe advertised in c. 1887. Bologna crepe, silk crepe used for mourning, also known as veil cypre. Canton crepe, a soft silk crepe with a pebbly surface originally associated with Canton in China, with bias ribs. Made in Britain, but exported to China, hence its name. Caustic soda crepe, cotton treated with chemicals to create a crepe-like texture, are often in patins. Chiffon crepe, chiffon weight crepe. Chijimi, Japanese crepe. Chiramin, Japanese raw silk crepe widely used for kimonos. When woven with a dot it is Monchiranman. Courtauld crepe, 1890s mourning crepe made by Courtaulds. A 1894 variation, called Courtaulds New Silk Crepe, was exceptionally thin and soft. Courtaulds monopolized the export market for English crepes and crepes, meaning that the textiles known as crepe anglaise were almost always manufactured by Courtaulds up until 1940. Crepe Algerian, a trade name for a printed pongee with a rough crepe texture. Crepe anglaise, a French term for English mourning crepes in black and white. The only true crepe anglaise was considered that made by Courtaulds, which was last made in 1940. Crepe Beatrice, trade name for crepe with a light warp stripe. Crepe Berber, trade name for a piece-dyed crepe-textured pongee. Crepe charmeuse, lightweight silk satin with a grenadine warp and crepe reverse. Crepe chenette, a trade name for a strong crepe with a pebble texture. Crepe made with extra twists in the warp to create an extra deep texture. Crepe de Chine, a fine, lightweight silk, cotton, or worsted, with a plain weave and crepe twist filling. Crepe de Chine Travers, a ribbed crepe de Chine with heavier filling yarns introduced to the weave at regular intervals. Crepe De Dante, crepe with silk and wool filling. Crepe de la Haute, cotton crepe made in France. Crepe de laine, a sheer wool fabric plain woven with hard twist for a slight crepe effect. Crepe de Sante, an undyed, closely woven, rough-textured wool blend crepe mixed with silk, linen or cotton, also called health crepe. Crepe de Suisse, 1860 dress fabric. Crepe de Spain, open weave fabric with a silk warp and wool filling. Crepe Diana, trade name for a cotton and silk blend crepe. Crepe Elizabeth, English term for immottled pebbled georgette. Crepe Fille Sublime, silk grosgrain with a hard twist filling. Crepe flannel, plain woven worsted with a crepe finish. Crepe imperial, late 19th century woolen crepe. Crepe jacquard, crepe with designs produced by jacquard weaving. Crepe Janagore, trade name for a heavy rib textile with alternating rayon and dull acetate warp threads, cross-dyed for varied shades. Crepe Jersey, vertically ribbed silk crepe resembling the knit fabric. Crepe lissé, a lightweight, lustrous, slightly stiffened open-weave silk cotton crepe, with fewer twists than a crepe. Crepe la, French term for a crepe effect. Crepe line, very sheer plain woven silk usually used in textile conservation, originally introduced in 1870s as a cheap alternative to crepe de chine. Crepella, plain woven worsted using hard spun yarn. Crepe Moretz, 1862 fabric. Crepe Marocaine, heavy, cross-ribbed crepe where the filling yarn is coarser than the warp, resembling a Canton crepe. Crepe Meteor, soft silk crepe, twill weave reversing to satin. Crepe Mohair, silk and mohair blend crepe. Crepe Moret, trade name, lightweight worsted crepe with heavier, looser filling. Crepe Mossa, a type of opaque voile which resists shrinkage. Crepe Myosotis, a later mourning crepe made in the 1930s, in crimped silk with a soft finish. Courtaulds launched this textile in the early 1930s as an alternative to the increasingly unpopular traditional stiff mourning crepes. Crepe knit, crepe effect pongee. Crepe ondes, rough textured rayon acetate blend crepe. Crepe poplin, a late 19th century silk wool rib fabric with crepe effect. Crepe Rachel, French print cotton worsted blend crepe. Crepe radio, British raw silk crepe with a ribbed effect, using alternate double rows of S-twist and Z-twist. Crepe royal, sheer crepe de chine introduced in 1889. Crepe Suzette, a variation on crepon Georgette, crepine, silk with crepe dots. The name also describes a type of fringe. Crepeline, a class of transparent fabrics with a warp-wise crepe effect. Crepon, a heavier crepe with an exaggerated warp directional texture produced by several weaving techniques. A soft, silky version was introduced in 1866, and the second, much heavier version in 1882. In the 1890s, crepon also described a woolen fabric that puffed between stripes or squares, including crepon Milleret and crepon Persian. Crystal crepe, an English term for silk crepe. Crespe, lightweight crimped mourning gauze, late 16th century. Sinara, and crepe-type fabric in rayon and acetate. Cyprus, fine crepe used for mourning hatbands in the 15th–17th centuries, made in Cyprus. Types: Ella Il Canicao, black mourning crepe worn in Hawaii. A pink line, textile in silk, rayon or worsted with a crepe surface. Esmeralda or Attendal, sheer white crepe gauze popular in early 19th century, often embroidered. Flat crepe, also called mock crepe or French crepe, a smooth, flat plain weave fabric, typically a silk blend, with hard twisted yarns and ordinary yarn warp, also used to describe a similar fabric made without crepe twist yarns. French crepe, inaccurately applied to flat crepe. Plain weave light silk or rayon cloth similar to flat crepe, a lingerie weight fabric with ordinary yarn warp and a twisted filling yarn that is less twisted than typical crepe twist. Gamsa, an imitation satin-backed crepe in twill weave rayon. Georgette, sheer, lightweight fabric named after the couturière Georgette de la Plante. A crepe-surfaced plain weave silk, a synthetic fabric with alternating S and Z twist yarns in both warp and weft, an English term for cotton crepe. Georgian crepe, a chain-pebbled crepe often with diamond, shield birds motifs. Health crepe, see Crepe De Dante. Lingerie crepe, see French crepe. Types: Marana, woolen crepe, very resilient and drapeable. Mock crepe, see flat crepe, momy crepe, light cotton fabric, moss crepe, see sand crepe, Norwich crepe. A crepe, 19th century silk warp and worsted, resembling a non-twill bombazine but not considered true crepe. 17th century black dyed worsted crepe made in England. A georgette-like silk and cotton blend fabric in a crepe weave. Pekin crepe, Pekin woven with a crepe weft. Plissé, mainly cotton fabric with a crepe effect created by chemically treating the fabric to pucker and crinkle, typically in stripes. Plissé satin is made using crepe yarns. Reverse crepe, woven with a crepe yarn warp and flat filling. Rhythm crepe, plain weave rayon with seersucker stripe. Romaine, heavy but transparent crepe. Roshnara, trade name for heavily ribbed satin-backed crepe. Russian crepe, invented in 1881. A coarse weave crepe. Sand crepe, a moss crepe. Crepe with a grained or frosted surface appearance, created with a small dobby weave. Sawdust crepe, similar to sand crepe but with a harsher surface. Satin-back crepe, reversible fabric with a satin face and a crepe reverse. Chios, Japanese spun silk crepe. Spanish crepe, see Spain. Victoria crepe, British-made cotton crepe with a high luster. Yantsu, figured silk crepe made in Yantai, eastern China. Yedo crepe, soft cotton fabric, medium weight. Entry from Encyclopedia Britannica 11th edition. Crepe, a silk fabric of a gauzy texture, having a peculiar crisp or crimpy appearance. It is woven of hard-spun silk yarn, in the gum, or natural condition. There are two distinct varieties of the textile: soft, Canton or Oriental crepe, and harder crisped crepe. The wavy appearance of Canton crepe results from the peculiar manner in which the weft is prepared, the yarn from two bobbins being twisted together in the reverse way. The fabric when woven is smooth and even, having no crepe appearance, but when the gum is subsequently extracted by boiling it at once becomes soft, and the weft, losing its twist, gives the fabric the waved structure which constitutes its distinguishing feature. Canton crepes are used, either white or colored, for ladies' scarves and shawls, bonnet trimmings, and C. The Chinese and Japanese excel in the manufacture of soft crepes. The crisp and elastic structure of hard crepe is not produced either in the spinning or in the weaving, but is due to processes through which the gauze passes after it is woven. What the details of these processes are is known to only a few manufacturers, who sedulously guard the secret that, in some cases, the different stages in the manufacture are conducted in towns far removed from each other. Commercially they are distinguished as single, double, 3-ply and 4-ply crepes, according to the nature of the yarn used in the manufacture. They are almost exclusively dyed black and used in mourning dress, and among Roman Catholic communities for nuns' veils, and C. In Great Britain, hard crepes are made at Braintree in Essex, Norwich, Yarmouth, Manchester and Glasgow. The crepe formerly made at Norwich was made with a silk warp and worsted weft, and is said to have afterwards degenerated into bombazine. A very successful imitation of real crepe is made in Manchester of cotton yarn, and sold under the name of Victoria Crepe.